Good evening, viewers. My name is Matthias Ofiku, news editor of the Namibian Sun newspaper. Welcome to Evening Review. Let's have a look at today's headlines in the Namibian Sun newspaper. Well, tonight we're joined in studio by the president of the Rally for Democracy and Progress, Mr. Mike Kavikatora. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
How have you been?
I'm doing very well.
Yeah?
Yes.
How's the party doing?
The party is it's got its challenges, but we are pushing ahead.
Yeah, surging ahead.
Yes.
Parliament is back, I see. Quite an interesting start to the year.
Well, yes, Parliament has always been interesting, but I think this time around we have new blood that are infusing new approaches to debates and so on. So it's quite interesting. Make one alive and remain relevant.
Yeah, very interesting. There's quite an infusion of young members in Parliament this time around compared to the years back. How has that been the balancing act between the young MPs and those who've been there like yourself for quite some time now?
Well, I don't know why you're saying for quite some time. This is my second term. The infusion of young blood, obviously, we have been saying all along that it's good to have new ideas, new approaches, and not to hold on to the old way of doing things, of perhaps looking at the historical facts and so on. The young people are more inquisitive. They are probing more. They are asking more questions. But I have to qualify what I'm saying in terms of young people. It's not really age that matters. Yeah. To me, it's the competency of the individual that determine the debate and the input of that particular individual. You have young people who are very, very active and make you think in a different way. But then you have young people also in Parliament who are quiet like the old generation who have been there. So it just shows that it pays for one to have young people with the right competency and with the right skills and who can basically meet the job demand. And that is what you are saying in Parliament at the moment.
Okay. Let's talk about RDP. It's a party that came and really shook the political landscape of Namibia. I mean, even the ruling party was shaken by the arrival of RDP. But in recent years, there seems to have been a decline in the impact of the party in the political affairs of the country. What has led to that change?
I think, first of all, I think even the initial stages of RDP, the actual was not felt at all. Because from the word go in 2009, the ruling party have started to strategize on how to basically reduce the effectiveness of RDP over the years. I'm saying this because in 2009, that was the first time RDP participated in the election. When we went into that election, on our database, we had something like 400,000 members, registered members, card-carrying members. And then we ended up having 80,000 on the polls. And we ended up having 8 seats in Parliament, which was a performance from an outside perspective. But from my own perspective, who was also involved in the auditing of the election of 2009, I still believe that a lot of manipulation went into that election, and the 8 seats that we got that time was not the true reflection of our popularity at that time.
Yeah.
But subsequent to that, obviously, I've been saying that before, and I'm going to say it again, we had a number of challenges, both internal as well as external. Internally, we had leadership squabbles. It has been haunting this party from the word go, from the late Hidipo's time up until my time. That does have a detrimental effect on the performance of the party. That's one. Externally, we still have the resolution that was taken by the ruling party that every single party that moves out, or a party that's formed by members who moved out of the ruling party, must die a natural death.
Where is that resolution stated?
Well, we have some of these unwritten rules, but that is exactly what is happening.
Yeah.
Because even when you have a success story, like for instance, when I was elected as a president, that was a milestone in the sense that the ruling party, in confidence, I got it from a member of the ruling party's, a high body like the Central Committee, who said that they were hoping that there will be a split within the RDP. Now that RDP, with those 625 delegates, went and took and ran a smooth convention, they have a problem, and they will find a way of doing something about it. You see how we are being followed by the ruling party. So that is what I'm terming as the external factors that are contributing to where we are today.
Yeah.
However, a party that was based on a strong resolve of not delivering services to the people, a resolve of the ruling party losing vision to run this country, a ruling party that has now created a culture of self-enrichment, a culture where everything is being done around the elite in a democratic setup. We are still determined to forge ahead. Yeah. It's going to be difficult. Financially, we are financially challenged. We have a number of people who left the party. But at the same time, we have people who are joining the party. And that is why I'm actually still positive that notwithstanding our current performance, notwithstanding the challenges that we've been facing over the years, RDP still remain relevant.
Okay. You spoke of infighting. Your head was on the chopping block not so long ago. How has that been resolved?
Well, it has not really been resolved, and that's what I'm saying. Because if you look at, if you start following even that particular development, it's got an internal factor. It also have got an external factor. When we went through the convention, everybody was satisfied about the process that we took, about the progress we made, and about the election process. 3 months down the line, after everybody has accepted the outcome of the election, and my winning the election with quite a significant number, there was a turnaround from some of my colleagues, specifically Kandine Hova. And then when you start analyzing that, you see that first of all, it was surprising to say that how could one wait for 3 months and then start challenging the outcome of the election that he already declared to be free, fair, and transparent. And then comes another intervention where a letter that was written by lawyers, by Kandi's lawyers, first had a stop in the ruling party before it came to us. That to me gave me, obviously I cannot put my head on the block, but one can assume that certain things are being done together with people outside of the party. Now, the reason I'm saying that it's still going on is that the last time Kandi took the matter to court. He lost the first time on technicality, and also that the matter is not urgent. He came back the second time. He withdrew the case at a point, and then the last time, last year, I think around about October or so, he again put another matter in front of the court. We don't know where it is now. Everybody is quiet. Kandi is quiet. There doesn't seem to be any movement from that perspective, but it's still a challenge that we are aware of.
So as a leader, what unifying mechanisms have you put in place to ensure that your party is solidified?
Well, there are two specific interventions that I'm looking at. If I can get money from Matthias and some of your good friends, maybe from the fish rod or so, I'm looking at two fundamental interventions. One is, as I said, we don't have a problem with our members. We do have members, but they are simply just scattered. I'm looking for a team building exercise that is going to basically make us a coherent team of people pulling together and basically also pronounce ourselves in terms of things that must be done in the party and things that cannot be done in the party. So we need a team building exercise. We also need a culture change intervention. The reason I'm saying that is that when we moved out of SWAPO, because the majority of RDP members were SWAPO members, some of them prominent members. Now, SWAPO has got a specific culture. And I remember even before I became a member of the Central Committee, I was called to the Central Committee meetings as an observer. And I made a remark to HH, said, colleagues, you guys are out of SWAPO, but SWAPO is not out of you. That culture necessitate RDP to have a culture change intervention. Those are the two interventions that I'm looking at as soon as possible, obviously depending on the financial affordability, that we need to do so that at least we can have our own identity and move away from, the mentality, this is how we used to do things in the ruling party.
So are you saying that more than a decade after the formation of RDP, this culture still exists?
Yes, it still exists, and it's Matthias, to change a culture is not something that you're going to do overnight. And I'm saying this because the culture that we are seeing, even in the ruling party today, did not start at independence. It started way before independence, and it's still, lingering on. And it might have its positives, but I see a lot of negatives in that particular culture. If you get out of the ruling party, first of all, SWAPO is a strong, it's a big political party with a big support base. So your strategy as a small party cannot be the same as a strategy adopted by a big party like SWAPO. But I can assure you that the culture still exists. It is still haunting not only RDP, it's now spilling over to other setups in the country. Because dominance has got a much bigger influence over society. And therefore, whatever is happening, let me give you a typical example. My son, who's now 18 years old, my last born, we go to the farm, and he's a good shooter. He could shoot a kudu or whatever. And he go and shoot a kudu. He called me, Dad, I have shot a kudu. It's at this plot. We go and we load it. We bring it to our village, to our homestead. Then when I'm telling him that, Pewe, go and clean that blood in that bucket so that tomorrow when you go back to work, at least the bucket is clean. He will come to me and said, yes, Daddy, I will do it, but it is a tender. give me $100 for me to clean that. It sounds insignificant, but the mental setup is that if you do something, then you must get something in return.
Yes.
It's a culture that has been. How did you come to know that?
Yeah.
It's just following what is happening, from the leadership, and that's how strong a culture is. Because a culture also has got to do with value. There are certain value that is now become part and parcel of the whole thing, and those values to just get away from it is not an easy. You cannot just say, "Oh, I'll change my value system overnight and start something new." It's not possible.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's why I'm saying it is detrimental not only to the party and to the effect on us, but it's also detrimental to the whole country.
Yeah. Let's speak of an area which you operated in over the years before obviously joining the political space on a full-time basis, the parastatal sector.
Yes.
What is your analysis and views on the current status of our parastatals in the country?
Oh. Again, you must appreciate my comment on the basis of what I said already, the culture issue. First of all, it is my views that there are simply too many state-owned enterprises. Some of them created for dubious reasons, perhaps to cater for jobs of comrades. That's one. Two, the politics also played a significant role in a culture that evolved in the parastatals, starting from the recruitment. People went into positions of power in many of these parastatals without matching the competency required to fulfill the job. And I'm talking about chief executive officers, managing directors, and board of directors, mostly. Some of them are political appointees, which therefore does have a detrimental effect on the performance and the operations of the parastatal. Some of the other parastatals like Telecom, Transnamip, those are technical institutions. And if you want to run those institutions successfully, you either have to have a strong business-minded chief executive officer, but who is not too selfish, who's got the capacity to employ highly technical people and allow these people to do what they can do best. These things did not happen. Then comes to the issue of holding on to something that doesn't work for far too long. Some of the
in Namibia.
Well,
I know this way you're going.
yeah, holding on to something that is just for far too long. If I'm not the one mentioning Namibia. You're the one who just mentioned it. Take that example of Namibia. We pumped in from taxpayers' money something like 11 billion over the years without assessing our return on investment. And that is also not only applicable to Namibia, it's also applicable to other institutions, even NBC, for argument's sake. Now, if something does not work, especially in business, because some of these are commercial entities, although they are parastatals, either you maximize your profit or you minimize your losses. Before government opened the space for other airlines to come in, and mind you, we brought in highly competitive airlines. Qatar Airways, KLM, British Airways, these are all competitive airlines. Before they brought in, I stood up in Parliament and I was telling, because Air Namibia was still making losses, but it was still an asset that one could sell to somebody. That's where I'm saying you minimize your losses. I told Minister Jooste to say, colleagues, you are now allowing all these airlines. Obviously, I mean, you cannot refuse, but at least you do have an exit you have to consider. But before you allow these airlines to come and operate in our airspace, do something about Air Namibia. Either sell it off or find a strategic partner. Now what you find in Parliament, you find some of these ministers who doesn't understand what the business is all about, saying that Kavikatora has always been saying we must liquidate. Yes, I've been saying we must liquidate. But what did I say about liquidate? I know that liquidation is the last resort. You go to liquidation when everything else failed.
Do you think we're at that stage now? Or
Something
can still be done?
Before 2 weeks ago, I was almost saying we are at the stage of liquidation. But then a letter leaked out from government where an airline from Turkey made a very sound proposal to government through ambassadors, our ambassadors abroad, especially Ambassador Andreas Guibeb. And that's what changed my mind a little bit to say, but if at this stage where we thought that we have reached a point of no return, if there are people who are still interested in the airline, then liquidation, then the government did not do a thorough job in terms of looking for alternatives before they move into liquidation. Coupled with that was an issue of obviously coming back to the SWAPO culture and our government culture. It was an issue of information has it that this liquidation is meant to pave way for another airline where they're politically connected, have got feasible interest in. Those two items have come to change my mind as far as liquidation for Air Namibia at this current moment is concerned. Because first of all, questions must be answered as to who is, promoting this airline, this new airline, if it all is true, number one. And secondly, what happened to that proposal? And how many other proposals were really considered before we move into liquidation? That's the one part when it comes to the government, because they are telling us this is a voluntary liquidation. There's another X, and that is the X of the creditors, one of the creditors, who have decided that you pay up or I'll force you to liquidate. The only option on that one is just to pay up. Because if you don't pay up, their debt will become doubtful, and because of the risk that they are running, they can go to court and force Air Namibia to liquidate. So that is the situation, and unfortunately, the culture of the ruling party is also a culture of hiding everything. When I mentioned that letter that came from one of these Turkish airlines, the Deputy Prime Minister, instead of just acknowledging the letter, because now the letter is out, it's public, I have it on my phone, she was saying, but she does not understand how the letter leaked out. But that's not the issue. The issue is to make sure that a national asset is, you do the right thing. If you have to liquidate, you do it transparently, openly. If you have to find another solution, you do it. And I stood up to say, but it's very unfortunate that you're working within your culture, but in a democratic setup, that information is supposed to be public information. You cannot fight of saying, how did this information get to public? Because that is not the important thing.
But as much as you are pointing fingers to the ruling party, what has the opposition done over the years to ensure that the downward spiral that Air Namibia was on is stopped? How have you as opposition done?
How? You see, I think this is a question that, first of all, is a very unfair question.
In the sense that, how? Because you were the chair of the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament, the chairperson for that matter.
Yes.
What have you done to ensure Namibia has not submitted a financial report in 10 years, a whole decade, but what have you done in your committee?
This is what we have done. Not only as a member of the committee or the chairperson of public accounts for those 4 years, but also as a politician. And also, politician, I have got a business background, because that is my background. My background is economy. Leon Jooste, if he's honest enough, will tell you that I'm the one, when it comes to the producing for financials, I'm one of those people who have been hammering him, both not only on the production thereof, but also the audit opinion. Because if the auditors are saying that this company has got a going concern issue, in other words, they are saying that company is technically bankrupt. When you come to a point where a company is technically bankrupt, and that's what I've been telling Parliament all along, you either put up a strategy to say, yes, we acknowledge the fact that this company is technically bankrupt, but these are the remedial actions. These are the things that we're going to do. You don't just keep quiet and put your hands like this and assume that everything is fine. I've been telling the Minister of Public Enterprises that he must do that. Secondly, not producing financials. It's against the law. And I even went to his office. I went to Leon Jooste's office to tell him that you guys are doing things illegally, because you cannot allow an institution, because I was not aware of Namibia. Why? Because you see, the financial statements, first of all, will have to go to the custodian ministry. From the custodian ministry, it comes to the Ministry of Finance, who table those in Parliament. The majority of state-owned enterprises that are not being audited by the Auditor General, because there are some of them, we don't get financial statements in Parliament. That question I also probe. Thirdly, we had a situation where we called in Namibia on a public hearing. The public hearing, at the end of the day, derive certain recommendations. Recommendations that goes to Parliament, and once we debate, you submit those recommendations for discussion, and once approved, it's supposed to be implemented by the custodian ministry. This is the process that we've been following. Namibia came through a public hearing, recommendations were made, and obviously there it collects dust, because we as a committee, when I was still there, I'm no longer there, don't have the power to enforce. But the ministry has been given our recommendation as to what is the problem and what do we think need to be done about that.
But Mr. Kavikatora, is it really fair for you to sit here and tell the nation, who, after all, foots your salary bill, that I have told the minister that we must do this, the committee has submitted reports that were not implemented, they didn't do that, so there's nothing more we can do? Is that the only avenue that you can think of?
No, it's not the only
What could you have done more?
Well, no.
In hindsight?
No, it's not the only avenue, but I tell you why I'm saying sometimes you must understand the system in which you operate to either blame somebody or something like that. You see, I have a number of cases that had I had the financial means, I would have challenged those cases even in a court of law. But you know, even your newspaper might be giving money to SWAPO and not to the opposition party, because it's a survival of the fittest. You want to be associated with a party that has got tenders so that you can qualify for tenders. I mean, in some newspapers I've seen that. So the point that I'm trying to make, and that's one. Two, you have a parliament where it's dominated by one party. That's the ruling party. We have put in a lot of motions in parliament, just as for example. At the end of the day, in a democratic setup, you have to vote. When you go to a vote, even a SWAPO member who told you that, Honorable Kavikatora, this time around, you are right, please don't stop, push that agenda. He or she will vote against you. You with me? That is why you have a number of maybe 40 or 50% of them just sitting there, voting for the day, waiting for the day for a vote to come. So what I'm saying is that the system is stacked against us. If I had money individually or as a party, we could have challenged some of these things that are unlawful. Look at the electoral law, the omission of certain provision in the law. Eventually, that thing ended up in the court because at least there was somebody who had the money, but I also was there to support that. So it's the way the system is. You cannot take a party that has got 3 members in parliament and assume that we can do everything because the ruling party has got a culture and they want a certain output, and they will get that output not only in parliament, even outside parliament, because where does parliament come from? If the representation in parliament is a true reflection of the voters out there, then I point the finger at you as well. Why did you vote for SWAPO? For SWAPO to be able to do the things that they are doing that are detrimental to the progress of the country.
So what you're saying is this culture must just persist because there's nothing you can do.
No, it's not what I'm saying.
What do we do then going forward?
You and I will have to change course. We'll have to, you have to start understanding that at the end of the day, in a democratic setup, it's important, it's in your interest for me to survive as a political party. And I'm not talking to you about, I'm talking about even the business community. They must understand that. Secondly, the voters must understand that at the end of the day, if you don't deliver, they have the right to take you out. But they're not exercising that right. Mostly what they do is basically to continue voting because my mother has been voting for the ruling party over the years. And that is also a contributing factor to what we're seeing today. That's why the thirdly is the culture issue. If the ruling party start to listen to the advice that are being given by the opposition parties, we can have a better country. We can also have a better governance system in this country.
Yeah. Of course, some of the voters would also argue that they are dejected and they feel that what's the point of voting for opposition parties? So if I'm not interested in voting for SWAPO, let me rather not vote. What alternative are you as opposition parties giving the voters? I mean, look at parties like IPC. Look at pressure groups like AR, what they are doing. Why can't that be replicated all over the opposition spectrum?
No, but sometimes, I don't know what you mean by why can't it be replicated. And I also, I'm not the type of person who believe in input. I believe in output. What is the output? So what I'm saying is that yes, I can talk. I can talk about a lot of things, but I'm more interested in the output because the output is really what matters to me.
But can you have output without input?
No, but you cannot just focus on input without really sort of understanding where do you want to get it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can play a public relation in politics, but public relation is basically just to make sure that people knows that you are there and you're doing something without really looking at the output. Let me give you an example. RDP, myself specifically, we fought and we said this whole mass housing project is a mess. I'm the one who coined that word mass housing. It's a mess. And luckily I was instructing somehow because the former minister, Sophia Saningwa, used to work for me when I was here at IMLT, sorry, NHE.
Yeah.
I told Sophia, in Parliament, you must stop pushing money into mass housing because it's a mess. First of all, it does not cater for the real need of the people who need social housing. Secondly, it's politically motivated. Sophia, at the end of the day, after a few days, decided to stop that thing.
Yeah.
So that is the output that I'm talking about. So sometimes and sometimes you ignore that because the newspaper will go there. No, seriously, Nabib's son will go there, and instead of crediting that to Mike Kavikatora, they say Mike Kavikatora, and they find somebody else that they like. No, you do that. No, let's be honest.
Well, then you would have been here. You wouldn't have been here.
No. This is a once-off issue. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about a relationship, and basically because you have a serious role to play in mending the culture moving forward. If you continue to play favors, for whatever reasons, maybe you like a particular politician and therefore you play favors. You're contributing to where we are today.
That's correct.
At the end of the day, we're not going to go anywhere. So I'm saying that the environment have to be conducive for one to be effective. And unfortunately, our environment, our political environment, is not conducive. That is why last year, in October, I put up a motion in Parliament to say this House must debate and interrogate the effectiveness of our institutions in the promotion of democracy. My mind was very clear as to what I was saying. What happened? First of all, they push it to a level where it will lapse, but lapsing is not a problem because I'm going to introduce it again. Secondly, they line up a number of people. You go and attack Kavikatora on this one because even in Parliament, the ruling party could easily say, when I say, colleagues, 1 + 1 is equal to 2, they will send people and say, no, go and attack Kavikatora. Tell him that 1 + 1 is not equal to 2, it's equal to 5. And everybody will clap hands. That is the situation.
Okay.
And for me, my own analysis, as a former consultant, I still believe that our biggest problem is the political culture that evolved through a deliberate strategy by the ruling party to favor the elite to the detriment of the population.
Okay.
That to me is the core problem.
Mr. Kavikatora, it was nice having you tonight on the show. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
All the best.
Thank you very much for having me.
Good.
Yeah.